right. Hello, everyone. Tanya here with New Earth Consciousness, and I'm live with Mike Shoeman. Mike, thank you for joining me. And so Mike is a ministry candidate right now, and he's the lead facilitator of WINfinity.world. So Mike, you have an interesting background. If you go to your, I stalked your Facebook profile, and that, you were involved in acting and personal trainer and life coaching. So tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, you started out there, and now you're doing all kinds of really interesting things right now. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here, Tanya. Yes, well, it's all really a part of a journey, and whether you want to call that a spiritual journey, a life journey, I'm a traveler. I'm an explorer. I like discovering new facets about myself and new facets on how I interact with people. But yeah, where I'm at the moment is I'm very involved in a spiritual community at the moment as well. I'm the board president of an organization called Circle of Miracles, and I'm really just trying to find out more about who I am and what my purpose is being here. And I do that more through interaction and more through not being so attached to titles or representations or labels or anything like that, but just really through the art of communication. One of the things that I think that I try to represent and I try to create environments, especially as a facilitator, is to practice really deep listening, reflection, asking deeper questions, and just getting closer to the source of who I am and the source of all being, and to find out just how to make things easier for people, how to really just connect to each other in deeper ways, and manifest, learn more about other people so that we can manifest, what we're here to do, manifest our best lives. Yeah. And I've often found that happens more through interaction and through deepening relationship than it is about any kind of official organization or title or anything like that. So yes, that's a little bit about me, and where I'm at the moment is just enjoying the process of meeting people, listening to stories. The project that I'm working on at the moment is something called a living library, where it's just about talking with people that you would not normally have a conversation with, where you don't judge a book by its cover. And you spend time with someone. At first, it's someone who you are already connecting with, where there already is a resonance and where there's already kind of like a natural flow. And the more you kind of build those kind of relationships, the more confidence you build in being able to reach across the barrier to people who are from different cultures or who hold different beliefs. So the Living Library project is something that I've been really putting all my energy into at this time in my life, just to be able to sit down with others and just know that every voice matters, and that everybody really does have a purpose, and it's just a matter of slowing down to speed up, to get to know those stories and to get to know others.
Yeah,
so that's me.
Beautiful. Pratibha is chiming in. She just said, I don't know if you see.
Hi, Pratibha.
So she's here. She's like,
awesome.
I don't know if you did. You might have. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, you've been a part of it. Yeah, I think that I love this concept of the simplicity of conversation, because, yeah, definitely we've been so polarized now, and with COVID kind of being the cherry on top, it's like, oh my goodness, like we can't even have authentic conversations anymore without some level of fear of like, oh, do we even talk about these subjects, because it's so volatile, and it's creating just a gap. There's a gap that everyone can feel, and I mean, I know it's definitely changed some of the nature of some of my relationships, where it's just like, we just don't let's just not talk about that. And so in a way, that's kind of spiritual bypassing, is how I feel it. And so to be able to lean in, I mean, there's been some people where I've been able to kind of lean in and have more of kind of edgy conversations, and not that we may never agree, but at least we're listening and being open.
Yes.
Just like, okay, we're still gonna, you're still my near and dear friend, and we just have to agree to disagree, and that's okay. Like, okay, yeah, I honor and respect you, and at least you know what I'm living with, and now I know what you're living with, and I can see more eye to eye with you. So
Yes.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Finding the common ground. Yes.
How do these conversations look like? I mean,
Well, it really just looks like this, what we're doing today, as a matter of fact. A living library conversation, the way I've been trying to create the environments and helping people understand it. It's really just a conversation where it's not about debate, and it's not really about trying to prove a point or argue a point. It's really just about listening, reflecting, and asking clarifying questions. That can often happen mutually, where both are kind of actively listening, and it bounces off of each other. And we play a game called the question circle. Maybe that's something we could do right here today, as a matter of fact, so that we can both practice being a book and a reader. But really, it's just a matter of deciding beforehand as well, too. If you want to have a structure to a conversation, sometimes whenever I have a conversation, it's usually assumed, and it's usually understood that I'm going to be the reader, and I'm asking questions and reflecting back what the other person is saying, and I'm exploring your world. I'm exploring your book, so to speak. So one of the things that I really appreciate about this conversation so far, Tanya, is really the common grounds that I'm already hearing, is that there are environments, and there are people who just don't want to talk about a lot of this deep stuff, the deep spirituality, and even politics. How does politics kind of interweave with spirituality? So yeah, it's like, how do we just start to have those conversations where it's not about comparing beliefs, but it's about, hey, we're on this journey together. What is some of our common ground? So I really appreciate that you are in tune with that, Tanya, and that you're having those conversations, and you're doing that exploration.
Yeah, I think it's about, can we find some truth there, even in our differing opinions? Is there some core seed of truth that is alive? I had a question and it just left me.
Okay, no problem.
Hopefully it'll come back. And yes, I'm open to practicing that process with you here live. And it's interesting though, as you present that, I'm like, ooh, is that going to make me uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Are we going to get uncomfortable? Yeah, now I remember what I was going to say. So I feel like what I appreciate, and I'm very much led by my intuitions. When I just saw somehow, whether it's through Pratibha or me just scrolling through Facebook or something, I came across stuff. I was like, okay, here's somebody that, it's really easy to be in this from the perspective of pointing out everything that's wrong. Like we can go on and on and on and on about all the things that aren't working, and we can get into that kind of doomsday outlook and just pointing fingers, which at the end of the day, I mean, maybe it's necessary for a brief moment, but if you get stuck in that, you're just you're not moving forward. You're just you're not coming up with the solutions. And so I feel like what I appreciate about you is that you're really actually, like, I think through these conversations and just having, presenting these deeper questions, like what are some of the solutions? And so part of what I found interesting, you were talking about, as this title is, Natural Law and the Forgiveness of All Debt. Yeah, money is something that's really interesting to me, because I feel like, there's so much on the internet about, have money be your best friend, and you just got to have the right mindset, and you just got to like practice the law of attraction and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's all fine and good. But from what I can tell is that the money, money might, sure, in its purest form is just an energy, but I feel that it's been hijacked. I feel like it's manipulated, it's controlled, it's not equally available or accessible. And I feel like it's just not working.
Yeah.
So when you proposed this this idea of time banking, I'm just going to open it up to you. Like,
awesome.
It's it's something that I've just been observing. I've read a little bit by Sacred Economics by Charles Eisenstein. Like, I really find it interesting, like the history of money and what has been created. Like, where are we now? Like, is it just all going to suddenly, we're going to go through some kind of radical change where it's like, we're just at the edge of this cliff of like, what are we going to do now? So curious to hear what you see and what you're interested in.
Yeah. Oh, wow. There's a lot of directions we can go with that. But yes, to your point about it being hijacked, I certainly believe, and I've been down those rabbit holes before as well, too, to know that if we want to think of money as an energy, yes, there is definitely some manipulation involved. And one of the things is just kind of like where there are powers, there are hidden powers who like to kind of control the belief systems, or at least control the parameters of those belief systems. Like a belief in scarcity is one of those things. Right. One of the things that I'm aware of is that, our economic system right now, I think it's like a $320 trillion debt, global debt in the world. Well, what is debt? All that is just kind of like this psychological concept that I owe somebody something, or I owe a master something. It's complete BS. And, it really is. And there are powers that like to keep us, especially through manipulation of the media, manipulation of the narratives, to kind of keep us kind of disempowered and separate from that kind of entering into that slave master relationship. And it's been going on for thousands of years. So then the question becomes, how do we kind of get in the middle of that, and how do we change the relationship? Because when you think about $330 trillion in debt, if you want to think about the actual tangible currency, there's only about $1.5–2 trillion in cash or in coins or exchangeable currency. So it's kind of like it's a hole that, unless we change our mindset, we're not going to dig ourselves out of it. And the people who benefit from that system, they're going to keep telling you, well, there's something wrong with you, instead of just saying, well, this is how we change it. This is how we kind of change the relationship. So, what I've been with the Living Library Project, what I've been presenting over the last couple of months is a series called Regenerative Economies: Natural Law and the Regenerative Economy. And really what that is about changing the relationship so that it can be more about partnership. It can be more about reciprocity. So, my belief, and this is where I kind of, I've been treated like the crazy person quite a bit for suggesting this, but I know math. That's the thing about it. It's not really so much a spiritual belief as much as it is just knowing math and knowing, how many people there are in the world, and knowing psychology and spirituality and emotions. But I believe that we could have a $5 quadrillion economy just by treating each other better, just by being able to, participate in open communication. And the reason why I say that is because there's 8 billion people in this world. And
we're back. We're here.
Am I still there? Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's 8 billion people in this world, and the average lifespan is about 72 years. You multiply that all out, and that's about 5 quadrillion hours that we have together combined. So you compare that to the debt, you compare that to the global debt. Our lives, our time, being in this system, we're only worth 4 cents an hour that we're not even, that doesn't even benefit us. It benefits those who have kind of assumed that they are in control and assume that they are the leaders. Right. So in the series that I've presented over the last couple of months, which can be viewed at roguecounselor.com, is first of all, it comes in 3 phases. To access that $5 quadrillion economy, it comes in 3 phases. One is the focus on the living library, and that's really just about spending time with each other and really starting to see each other's value. Mm-hmm. Because one of the things that I openly say that, if we get this going and if we work together, there's no reason why we can't have $1 million in 2 years or less, every single one of us. What is the barrier to that is that people don't believe they are deserving of it. They don't believe that their value is deserving of it. Mm. But from a fiscal perspective, from a financial accounting perspective, it should be very easy. So what I do is in the first four portions of the Natural Law series, I just introduce how to start to have those difficult conversations. So first, one of the questions I like to ask is, do you think you're worth $1 million? And if so, why? And if so, well, what's the barrier there? Also, when you look at the mechanics of how time banking works, and when you apply a different accounting system, what will cost you or I, $1 an hour, will cost $50,000 an hour to the billionaire class. So that's one of those uncomfortable conversations where, if you were to ask somebody, how do you feel about that? A lot of red flags go up. It's just like, oh my God, we're going to, if what we're doing is going to cost that ruling class $50,000 an hour, they might really come down hard on us, or there might be a lot of fear there. Yeah. So the first phase is really about having the conversations and starting to have and entertain the difficult conversations around that. The second 4 entries in that natural law conversation starts to introduce the time banking concept and how to account for our time differently. So we kind of flip the script a little bit about how we're a lot more valuable than we've been led to believe. And every moment counts, every hour counts, every person counts. And I introduced the accounting system, which is a lot of numbers, but it's really not a matter of making it work for you, because anybody can make it work for them. It's just a matter of trusting each other now, trusting each other that, okay, some of us, have been following this for a long time, and we understand the mechanics of it. So It's just a matter of building and deepening relationships. And then the final 4 that we just recorded over December is about how to practice it. How to practice living library conversations, how to join a time bank and start exchanging. First of all, starting exchanging conversation in a time bank, because a lot of what comes up, and the reason why a lot of people are hesitant to join a time bank is because they feel like either they feel like that what they have to offer is not really going to be worth anything, or they feel like what they have to offer is too valuable, or because if they're a professional in their work, or if they get paid quite a bit for doing it,
all of that,
yeah, they feel like they're undervalued. So that's why we do the living library conversation, so that relationships can develop. So for instance, like, let's say I'm a life coach. I'm not a practicing life coach anymore, but somebody comes to me and they want a life coaching service. My response to them is usually, well, let's have some living library conversations first and build relationship. And then if you want to pay me, or if you want to do any of that, then at least we have a mutual understanding and a trust between each other. And we're both earning money just by having the living library conversation. We're both taking ownership of this new banking system, which is really a decentralized system. And what that means when you look at kind of like the power that kind of rules this, kind of rules this world, it's based on centralization and privatization, which means they're keeping a lot of secrets, and there is a lot of psychological operations, keeping us from connecting, keeping us from seeing, how dark money flows, how, how much is actually invested in disempowering people.
Mm-hmm.
So changing the relationship and changing the shift in focus in I hate to use the word ownership, but really what it is, it's suggesting that we all publicly start to take ownership of the banking system. And when you take a $5 quadrillion economy at $1 an hour, you divide that up amongst 8 billion people, that's $500,000 for every single person on this planet. And the only thing keeping us from getting from here to there, is just believing and developing the relationships where we know that we are worth it. Because from a financial, technical, fiscal perspective, that part is actually very easy. It's just convincing each other that, yes, you are worth it. You are worth it.
It's so interesting. I mean, that's kind of like, that's how money came about, right? We just came to an agreement that this the paper is going to be worth this much and this is going to be the way we're going to trade goods. Instead of trading goods directly, we're just going to streamline this whole thing and make it a little easier and all this stuff. Yeah. And it seems to me then, I'm curious, like, have you thought about in your thinking and analysis of this concept? Because one thing that has come to my mind, and just reading other thought leaders, I guess you would say, how, this, domination of nature, basically extracting all the resources, seeing nature as something that we can, basically convert into money, right? And so this concept, rather than being like looking at a forest of trees and thinking, oh, wow, look at all that lumber, we can make a ton of money, just harvesting all those trees. And instead looking at like, wow, look at all those trees, look how much we have, and just letting them be, and how much life they give to all the animals and the people and the oxygen, like shifting our concept. Do you see, would you see that having an effect also with our relationship with nature?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I take a lot of look at the difference between what I call an extractive economy and a regenerative economy. And extractive economies, or extractive, an extractive nature, is built on competition, domination. It's really a belief in scarcity, and it's really kind of shielding this sense of lack and this sense of inadequacy. One of the things that we look at in our natural law series is something called curating flow, which honors the natural life cycle of nature, of any living thing. And what I've been noticing, and what I see a lot, is that there's this colonialist, almost patriarchal mentality that wants to go in, conquer, exploit the resources, and just kind of ride that train until everything dies. What happens is we recognize in Kairotic Flow 6 archetypes. And after you get through the pioneer phase, once you get through the cultivator phase and the regulator phase, that's kind of like the colonialist, let's move into a new territory and conquer it. Then comes the steward phase. And that's where, someone stands up and says, look, we really need to protect what's sacred. We really need to start looking at what really matters and start protecting what is sacred. And I believe there are leaders and there are people in our government who are trying to do that. But our mentality is, just throw those problems out of business so that somebody can make money off of fixing the problem. What happens is we miss two very important archetypes. from the steward, the next archetype is a curator. And I'm going completely into Kylie Stedman Gomish's work on kairotic flow. She's one of my ministry colleagues and has also been on my natural law series. The curator is what we call the critic, the caring critic. And they're asking about, why are these problems happening? Why are we getting this effect? So that archetype asks a lot of the deeper why questions. And in our society, especially in our Western society, those people are often marginalized, pushed to the side, and they're kind of seen as rebels almost, and it's a shame too, because they have their pulse onto what is actually wrong. And that is where, there's that spiritual bypassing, like, well, you got to be positive all the time. You got to be in a good vibe. And you got these curators saying, well, no, this is not working. It's breaking down. And here is why it's breaking down. And those are the people who are kind of kicked out onto the fringes of society. And the next archetype after that is the scout, which they're the ones asking the questions, well, what do we do about it? What is out there? What can we do? What can we do to combine forces? And those are the people who are kind of like the shamans or the sorcerers that have also kind of been, pushed to the side, to the fringe of society. Yeah. And they have an important role as well, too, because now they're sharing their information with the pioneers, so the pioneers can be more successful going into a new realm or a new world or a new environment.
Cyclical.
It's a cycle, exactly. So getting back to kind of like really living in concert with nature or living in collaboration with nature, it's really like those of us who don't really benefit from this extractive system, a lot of us kind of fall into that archetype of steward, curator, or scout. And rather than bring us to the table to have the conversation and to combine knowledge, we're kind of pushed to the side. It's like they're not seen as profitable or they're not seen as productive, because it's a very, to me, and we go into this when we talk about natural law, like law of gender or law of polarity. To me, that's kind of like a real masculine energy when it's about driving profit and growth and expansion. But with every expansion, there's also a contraction. And there's also that receptive energy, which I think of as feminine. And that's where to me, that's where I feel like that needs to be honored when we're looking at living in concert with nature and being a part of the flow rather than working against the flow.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's so interesting. Really, what I find so fascinating is just that in our, I don't know, I guess you call it the old world paradigm, it is very hierarchical, straight line, and what has been coming up in my meditations is that we're forgetting that time is a cycle. It's not a straight line, it's like everything is moving in cycles. I love that. So creating opportunities, I guess, for what you said, the shaman and the sorcerer or whatever,
the scouts,
scouts to come to the table, because for what I can see is that doesn't really happen, right? Like we have these institutions and they're kind of glorified as the pinnacle of everything, our education system, medical system, whatever. And have these, you can look at anything, like even just looking at the medical system, and you have all these whacked out doctors that end up getting kicked out of the, getting their licenses taken away or whatever, because they're questioning everything and coming up with different therapies and whatever. And rather than being invited to the table to see, like, what are they finding out? Could this actually be a new way? So I can see where going back to the living library, right? Like it's that
Mhm.
space, that's where you have to have the conversations,
Yep.
begin to
Yep.
have conversations. So that, again, that trust, it's just all like, it's all like clicking in my head and listening to you
Good.
speak. It's really,
Good.
really,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing too about the living library too, and getting away from hierarchy and power over it. It's kind of like my belief is that, we're experts of our own life, our own lives. We're experts of our own life experience. And the moment somebody starts to claim authority over other people or over nature or over anything, that's kind of when my red flag goes off. It's just like, okay, well, this is not going to be an equal partnership or reciprocal. So there's already a competitive aspect to it, especially in academia, especially in business. And that's part of what this project is about as well too, is how to make competitive environments more collaborative and help everybody understand that we're all experts and authorities of our own experiences. But the moment we start to claim expertise or dominion over anything or anyone else, that's kind of when natural law starts to get violated. Not violated, you can't really violate natural law, but it gets distorted. Where, the primary natural law that I think of is the law of divine oneness, which means everything is connected. And we see this in all of the religions, through the golden rule. The way I treat you is the way I would like to be treated. So there's a sovereignty, there's a divinity in all people, in all things, in all moments. And the moment we kind of get into a hierarchy and a competitive relationship and trying to be better, it's kind of distorting that sovereignty, distorting that understanding that everyone is divine. And I think that's one of the main themes that I would like to communicate today is just calling everybody back to the table and tuning into how we all have a piece of the puzzle, how we all kind of fit into the puzzle, rather than trying to jam my piece of the puzzle in your spot and 100 other people trying to do the same. How do we put the puzzle together with everybody's life experiences?
Right. Like, yeah, I love that, because it is true. Each individual life is, is a piece to the larger cosmic puzzle, right? Like
Yep.
each person matters. So, I think that there's I think there, unfortunately, there's so much, how do I want to say? It's like infiltrated in the structures of just different systems, whether it's a belief system or a modality or whatever. Like you see it all the time, where it's like someone inevitably gets put on the pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
Follow me. I have all the answers. I'm the expert. You just need to listen to what I have to say and come
Mm-hmm.
fall in line. And I think that happens to a lot of people, because it's the way, I don't know, it's just the way the media is set up. It's the way, again, it goes back to economy. It goes back to all this. I don't know if it's just in the subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I would say certainly that the first step in kind of dismantling all of that is just naming it. Like, can we
Yeah.
just be real for a minute? Can we just be real? Like, we're all equal, and it's unfortunate because it does create a lot of battle energy and disempowerment for both the person that's on the pedestal and the people that are following, so
Oh,
it's,
yes. Mm-hmm.
yeah, fascinating. Well, and it's interesting to me too that, of course, I don't follow astrology. I don't know that much about astrology, but I know, like, we're entering in this age of Aquarius,
Mm-hmm.
which is like kind of leveling the playing field, and this idea of, we're all being invited to the table. So it's really an exciting time to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if somebody wants to participate in this living library, do they go to
Mm-hmm.
WINfinity.world? Is that the place?
Yeah, that is actually where my co-facilitators and a lot of my ministry colleagues are right now. That's really where you learn the culture of what is being described in the natural law material. I would say if somebody would like to explore and participate, they can start listening to the Natural Law and Regenerative Economies series, which is on roguecounselor.com. And you can reach out to me personally. My email address is michael@WINfinity, and that's infinity with a W, WINfinity.us. So michael@WINfinity.us. I honestly try to avoid all of the kind of like the professional hangups of having to maintain, kind of like maintain a business or maintain a website or all of that. You can view a lot of the living library conversations on my blog, which is roguecounselor.com as well. And really, it's just about reaching out and having a conversation like what we're having today, Tanya. And that's really the first step. There's a series of conversations that I like to introduce others to. One is an appreciation conversation, which is a living library conversation where it's not about ideology. It's not about getting something done. It's really just about building relationship and seeing each other's value. And then there's 5 other conversations that come after that, like possibility, invitation, and just kind of consciously moving through those conversations as we get to know each other. So for me, this is not about going big or going home or reaching a big audience or anything like that. The entire theme and what makes a regenerative economy works is appreciating the small. I mean, the Taoists believe enlightenment is appreciation of the small. So I'm just looking to connect with people who appreciate the one-on-one conversations like this, like these, like what you're doing right here. Also, small group conversations with just 3 or 4 people. There's a lot of the natural law conversations are just between 3 or 4 of us. So really, anyone who views that material and it resonates, those are the people I want to connect with.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that so much. It's interesting because it's kind of like unplugging yourself from this matrix that tells you have to like go big or go home. Like you got to be
Right.
this, famous, big, whatever, big
Yeah.
face. And actually, it makes a lot of sense because I just see when you think of, just to create the analogy or the connecting with the analogy of looking at farming, for example, right? Like you can have big ag and produce all this, whatever, cheap food, and maybe it's plentiful, but it's a GMO and it's been sprayed and whatever, it's fast and convenient, and versus like, the farmer that actually gets to know the land, the soil, like does it himself, like really, those. And I think there's something really, that's the regenerative piece, because when you have those conversations, you are walking away with something that is nourishing, that is impactful, that has meaning. It's a genuine connection. It's not, you're not just a face in the crowd that gets forgotten about. It's, developing those relationships. And I think that's enough, right? Yeah.
That's the way forward. Yeah, that's really the way forward. And also it just takes the pressure off of having to perform. My belief, and I talk about this a lot, and sometimes I take a lot of heat for it, but I feel we're evolving as a human species, and part of what is part of our evolution is that when we put ourselves under pressure to have to perform or go big and do all these things which are not necessarily coming from inside, it's really coming from our culture. We really become emotionally stunted. my belief is that emotionally, and I don't have the science to back this up, but just from my own life experience, I believe most people are still functioning at a 3 to 5 year old emotional level, which is very difficult then to talk to people about what really matters, to talk about values, to talk about experiences. Because of that emotional stuntedness or that emotional immaturity, we get into ideology, we get into scoring points in our conversation, we get into debate. And really, I feel like we do a disservice to humanity when we do that, because we're limiting our brain function, and we're limiting our connection to our heart center and our energy centers. So which is why I believe, as we're moving more into collaborative environments, not only do we have access to those emotions, and we have access to, being able to connect on more intimate levels with people, we're also helping our brains to expand. There's a plasticity in the brain where if we're practicing conscious curiosity, we're practicing conscious appreciation, it really does help our brains develop and helps humanity to evolve as well too. And that's one of the goals of the Living Library, is to participate in more conscious curiosity and conscious appreciation.
Yeah, I love that. And I think and I'll just want to state to the audience, this whole belief that your brain's hardwired by the time you're 25 and that's it, like you're set. It's not true, right? Like science now knows it's malleable throughout life. So before we close, I'm just curious, like the demonstration of the conversation. I don't know if it looks different, but I'm open to you kind of like sharing what that looks like.
Sure. Well, why don't we do a quick exercise just to kind of exercise that part of the brain where we're talking in curiosity. So what I like to do is play an improv game, and I have been an acting teacher and an actor for most of my life. And one of these improv games I like to play is called Questions Only. So why don't we take wow, we're almost at time. This went by so fast.
Yeah.
Why don't we take 2 minutes and just go back and forth and just ask questions of each other? So I'll ask us like, oh, well, what did you like most about our time together, Tanya? So instead of answering in a statement, think about it for a moment and then ask me a question, and we'll go back and forth like that for about 2 minutes.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. So you asked me what was our favorite.
Yeah. What did you enjoy most about our conversation today?
What was most inspiring to you?
Where could we take this conversation about nurturing the earth?
What do you think would be possible if we did nurture the earth?
How did you get so good at asking questions, Tanya?
Have you always been this inquisitive?
Oh, where did you learn to be inquisitive?
Have you always been fascinated by the great mystery?
Where do we look to learn more about the great mystery?
What is possible when we look?
Very good. Good. That's great. So that's kind of like a warm up, kind of like a brain exercise to help ask questions. And then the next level to this is asking a question like, what did you enjoy most about our conversation together? Letting you respond as much as possible, and then based on your response, you would ask me a new question. And we would go back and forth like that. And really an hour goes by like nothing, just from that structure of conversation.
That is so interesting. Just my experience of like having to respond in a question. It's like, it's interesting.
You did it very well, by the way.
Oh,
Nobody ever does it that well. So you're a natural.
Oh, so yeah, it definitely does something to your brain. I could feel it. I was like, whoa, like even just the last question, I was like, okay, there's just this total openness of like, oh, well, and then when the question arrives, it's like, it's this spontaneous, feels like a genuine question, right?
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
and it's kind of like a channeling process too, when
Yeah.
you're with the question rather than jumping to an answer or jumping to a perspective. When you're with the question, that opens up a natural channeling as well.
Amazing. That's so cool. Thank you. Thank you so much,
You're
Mike.
very welcome. Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm excited to share this with my audience. And yeah, let's stay in touch. Maybe we'll have another conversation sometime in the future.
Perfect. I would love that.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. And please be sure to like and subscribe. Check out Mike's websites here, roguecounselor.com and WINfinity.world. Yeah, let's have some regenerative conversations. So thanks so much, Mike.
My pleasure. Thank you, Tanya.
All right. Bye, everyone.